Have you thanked the Department of Corrections? Especially in times like this when you have hurricanes like Hurricane Harvey and Hurricane Irma, have you thanked the Department of Corrections? That's a good question. My name is Anthony Ganji, host of Tier Talk. I'm coming back at you with another episode. Don't forget, guys, if you're listening to me right on the YouTube channel, please subscribe, interact, engage. It's a great venue for open discussions about what's going on in our correctional system. Also, download the app. I have a free app. It's called Tier Talk, Tiertalk. It's free. It's available for Samsung and Apple devices. Also, you can find us in other venues: Spreaker, Stitcher, iHeartRadio, TuneIn, iTunes, Player FM. The list is growing, which is great. And every Thursday, starting September 21st at 10:30 a.m., we'll be on the Manhattan Neighborhood Network. That's awesome. Now, if you have Verizon, Fios, and Spectrum, and you live in the 5 boroughs, you can get the channel. If not, you can stream it live from their website. And don't forget, I have a Facebook page. Now, obviously, we have recent events, right? We have Hurricane Harvey, and right now, as I'm doing this, Irma. Irma's a Category 4 right now, heading her way up the Florida coast. And it's going to be devastating. As of now, it just devastated Cuba. But going backwards, Hurricane Harvey was massive in destruction. Massive. And a lot of heroes. A lot of heroes came out of Hurricane Harvey to save lives. Lives that would have otherwise been perished. But what we don't hear a lot about, it's not as played as much as it should be, is the role that corrections plays in transporting inmates and saving thousands of lives that are behind the wall. Public has concern for some of those inmates. We are concerned for all of those inmates. So what's unique here is that I'm looking at the media, waiting to hear stories about, what these brave men and women are doing behind the wall to protect those inmates. Very minimal, if anything. And it's funny because if something negative happens in corrections, what's going to happen, guys? The media is going to exploit it. But when it's something positive, a way for the community to understand our role and what we do, the service that we provide for the public, it's shh, don't hear nothing. It's not that loud. So, with that in mind, why don't we talk about it for a second and make sure that the public knows that they owe corrections a bit of a thanks. And that's not to minimize or negate other departments and what they're doing. That's just to add to the thanks that are already being given out. So guys, what people don't realize is that when you have a major hurricane coming through, major hurricane, any weather event, natural disaster, whatever it is, well, got to protect those inmates. Those inmates have to be protected. And in this case here, when you got prisons that have the potential of going underwater, we got to start transporting those prisoners out. And that is a very, very complex process. Very complex. Very complex. Difficult. But before we get to even transporting the inmates out, we got to get staff. Staff's going to get mandated. They're going to leave their families behind, make a tremendous sacrifice, and report to work to perform their public duty. And that public duty is to literally protect the public and protect the inmate population. That is a hell of a public service, especially during a time where you're leaving your family behind and you don't know what's happening with them. You may not have any contact with them. But when there was a call for action, these brave men and women answered that call. These brave men and women answered that call. They made that sacrifice. Now, they have to transport thousands of inmates from one location to a designated safe area. And guys, it is a complex process. You're talking about each individual, each inmate has to go through their security measures. You have to make sure the transport is safe. Then when you get them to the facility where they're going, you have to make sure that the inmates that shouldn't be together, that they're not together. You're not just saying, oh my God, we have an emergency, let's scoop everything up and let's place them here. I wish it was that easy. It's not. Because you have to always maintain safety and security. You got to maintain safety and security during that transport, and you got to maintain safety and security at that destination. And most likely these inmates are going to be placed in open areas, so you got to maintain supervision in those open areas where officers and staff are going to be severely outnumbered. Guys, when these inmates get to that location, you're looking at keep separates. Do we have any inmates that shouldn't be together, like co-defendants? Protective custody inmates. Do we have inmates that are in protective custody that right now are mixed in with the population? Rival gangs. I mean, the list goes on. Then you have to get these inmates fed, make sure that they have a place to sleep, hygiene products, medical. I mean, these are things that have to occur. These are things that have to happen. And these individuals, these officers, these correctional staff, they step up. They do what has to get done. But in the process, can we not appreciate the sacrifice that they're making, that they're leaving their families behind to protect the public? Or for those that have families that are incarcerated, to protect your loved one, to make sure your loved one gets there safely. You know, when you get these prisons and they're about ready to get destroyed by these storms, and another perspective is, in case you could give two shits about the safety of the inmates, because we have some people like that, well, these officers are also stopping these inmates from escaping. You get a prison, it gets hit hard. Inmates could just walk right out. So again, their call to duty is definitely to protect that public, but also to protect the population. So you have two perspectives here that are being covered, two sides of a coin. Either way, public got to say thank you. Have to say thank you. Have to. And the sad thing is that these officers, they're experienced. The civilian staff, they're experienced. They're making decisions. But I know for a fact there are going to be people that think they can do it better. There are going to be people that think or are going to want to micromanage the experienced staff who's going through this at that moment, making the decisions. But let me tell you something, for those people who think they could do it better or who are trying to micromanage, you're home. You're safe. The brave men and women behind that wall that are making that sacrifice, they're living it, breathing it. While you think you can micromanage them from the safety of your home, they're in the field, risking their lives, making the sacrifice that needs to get done to make sure your loved one is safe and to make sure the public is safe. So don't bother them. Don't call them. Let them do what they got to do, because they're going to make the right choices. Trust me. They're experienced law enforcement professionals. Now, I'm going to keep this quick because I'm going to close on this. But when all is said and done and Harvey gets cleaned up and then Irma passes through and, you know, we pull through. We're Americans. That's what we do. We'll pull through. We'll survive. Eventually, we'll open our doors again, let's say for visits. And the public's going to get a chance to interact with their loved ones again. Get a hug. Whatever it is that they're looking for. Well, if you're going to visit an inmate, just remember the reason why that inmate's there is because the officer behind them saved that inmate's life, brought that inmate to safety, whatever it may be. So why don't you smile and go up to that officer and say thank you, because that officer made a sacrifice to make sure your loved one was safe. And for the governors of both Florida and Texas, let's get some commendations out for these brave men and women. They saved the public. They committed themselves to their service, is what we would expect from heroes. But the sacrifice that they made in doing that deserves recognition. And maybe that recognition will finally give the respect back to the correctional officers and civilian staff who risk their lives every day behind that wall and are forgotten in the shadows of justice. Love you guys. Stay safe. Anthony Ganji, host of Tear Talk. Don't forget, guys, please subscribe to the YouTube channel. Interact, engage. Let's get a venue for us. Let's build a very good, constructive dialogue. Stay safe.